Good evening, good morning. Sometimes we forget that you are in different time zones. While we are letting people in, maybe let's going to introduce ourselves for those that don't know us yet from the ABS team. So I'm Beatriz Gomez. I'm working on the ABS team with the Nagoya Protocol, particularly with national reports, assessment and review, and also with the ABS Clearinghouse. And I'm here with two colleagues, with Farah. Please, Farah, introduce yourself.
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Farah, and I'm working as a program management assistant in the ABS unit. I will pass it back to you, Bea.
And Matt, that you probably also know him from other webinars. Matt?
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Matthew Diaz. I'm also working in the ABS unit at the Secretariat. Among other things, one of my main responsibilities is the ABS Clearinghouse. Thanks. Back to you, Bia.
And we will have a guest as well that is going to help us. Maybe Amber, I'm going to please introduce yourself, and while we start, we wait for the starting.
Sure.
Amber, where are you?
Yeah. I'm here, but
so,
I'm unreliably...
Amber, please.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, wonderful. Hello, everyone. I'm Amber Hartmann-Schultz at the Leibniz Institute DSMZ in Braunschweig, Germany, and I head the Department on Science Policy and Internationalization.
Thank you, Amber. And she's going to help us a little bit to go through some of the issues about monitoring ABS that is part of the webinar. So this is one of these webinars that we are doing more or less once a month to share information of the things that are happening, or like just to engage with you and bridge some of the knowledge gaps or what we think could be important to know. So in this case, this webinar is actually about helping understanding for the CBD side of things what is happening with ABS and ABS indicators as part of the global framework, and for the ABS constituency, what is happening under the CBD with the GBF and all the components that put in place. Because sometimes we have like two constituencies and we follow different topics, and everything is now very linked together and related. So it's just to help to share information, and after the Rome meeting to know what has happened in the Rome meeting and what are the outcomes. So the webinar is going to be recorded, is expected to be 1 hour, and we will have some time for questions at the end. And you can also go putting your questions in the chat as they come. Some we will try to answer them, and others we will answer them together at the end of the webinar. So the agenda for the meeting is, this is just to go through some of, as I was saying, some of the components of the global framework, explaining Goal C and Target 13, how ABS relates to NBSAPs and the national targets, and the CBD's national reporting system and the monitoring framework, and how this relates to ABS. Also, we will address some of the decisions of the COPMOP of the Nagoya Protocol that relates also to the GBF. So as I said, like communicating better this interface between ABS and the GBF, which is sometimes a little bit less understood. So the global framework is different from the Aichi targets, and is different from other things that we have done before, in the sense of like has many components, and they are all part of a package. So things are not so in isolation anymore as maybe was with Aichi, but they are like a system for planning and national planning at global level, planning at national level, and after reporting and feeding back to the global level. So the components, of course, there is the goals, there is the targets, but there is the implementation support mechanism, there is the system for monitoring and reporting, and also communication. So it's all together. How does it work in practice? You have at national level, you have the global framework at international level, where there is agreed goals and agreed targets and agreed mechanism. And the translation to the national level is through the NBSAPs, the National Biodiversity Strategies, and national targets. All of these have to be, the national targets and the NBSAPs are not just goals and targets anymore. They also have to be accompanied by policies and actions on the ground and plans on how to actually implement. So it's not just goal, but following through. In addition, you have the next component. Once that you have set your targets, your policies on the ground, how you are going to monitor. So there is a system to monitor at the global level, to see the progress at global level, but also at the national level. And this monitoring system fits again in the review and the report to COP, so feeding back in the loop of implementation. So the implementation at national level, what is different from IT and how we have been conceptualizing the NBSAPs? The national targets, every country has to set national targets to implement the global targets and the global goals. These have to be aligned with the GBF. So there has to be, according to national circumstances, but also aligned with the targets and each of their components of the targets and the goals at the GBF level. And they have to be submitted in a standardized manner. There is like a standard way of working with those targets. Also, the targets, as I say, they are not standalone on its own. A target doesn't have value if you are not including means of implementation, you are not adding resources, and you have plans to implement it. So we are going a step further there on the planning. And the idea is also that these targets leverage the commitments and their other processes. They are thought through because the GBF, it goes beyond the CBD, and the Nagoya Protocol goes further in all the biodiversity related instruments and the community. So the idea is that it becomes the integration, the instrument of integration of other international commitments also that relate to biodiversity. So parties, the target is not also permanent. A target can be drafted and submitted and can also be adjusted or changed after the submission. So can be a dynamic process. The idea is that you make sure that this is something that you are going to implement. It's just not an ambition. So the targets, as I say, like now they have to be accompanied by concrete actions. What means concrete actions? So when you are drafting your national target, you have to think about the identification of financing, the identification of capacity gaps, what are the needs, development of national finance plans, and capacity development plans as appropriate to make sure that you know how to cover those gaps, and include the provision of finance or other means of implementation. So if you don't have those means, you have to plan for it, it's a planning instrument and has to be like doable. So that's why this is a little bit different of how we have been doing things before. And the next step is the national monitoring. So once that you have the national targets, you have your policies, you have your concrete actions, the plans that you are going to do, you have to identify how you are going to monitor the implementation. And you have to have a plan as well. So for those targets, the targets, they have some indicators that are permanent, and we will discuss indicators later. But the idea is that you use the headline and the binary indicators as mandatory, and after there is other indicators that you can use that are or the complementary or component that these are optional according to the country needs and also additional that are linked to the target. So you are always measuring the targets with the corresponding indicators as agreed in the monitoring framework that we will see. Of course, in the monitoring plan, you have to make it exactly doable, implementable, and you have to think who are the agencies that are going to collect the data, how you are going to do it, what capacity needs you have, what financial needs. That's why you need a monitoring plan. So all of this is the package of the national implementation plan for making the GBF something that is implementable at national level. So now we go from the idea of the GBF to look at the goal C and the target 13. So what was agreed for ABS? So how we translate these national targets into these global targets into a national target. So when you are deciding on what is the sign of your national target for goal C or target 13 that are for ABS, you need to take into account the text, and you have to understand what was agreed at global level. So the goal is talks about the increase in benefits shared. This is an outcome indicator. You are looking at what are the results of your ABS efforts, how it manifests, what are the results, how many benefits are actually bringing your ABS systems to your country. So this is what we are going to monitor, and this is what we want to achieve. If we need to realize what, we need an increase of benefits to make sure that your ABS systems are working in place. So the goal talks about this increase in the monetary and non-monetary benefits from 3 components. These are the utilization of genetic resources, the DSI on genetic resources, and associated traditional knowledge as applicable. And this increase of benefits has to be done in accordance with internationally agreed access and benefit sharing instruments. This means this is applicable for the CBD. If you are a CBD party but not a Nagoya Protocol party, you have ABS obligations, and you have the goal of increasing the benefit shared. So also applicable for only CBD parties, for the Nagoya Protocol, but also for the International Treaty of Plant Genetic Resources and other ABS instruments that have been on the making, like, for example, the BBNJ Treaty under UNCLOS. Eventually, when they have the implementation and is entering into force of their benefit sharing provisions, they could be covered by this goal C. So it's open-ended on the list of internationally agreed access and benefit sharing instruments. They are not mentioned, so we can understand that as they are developed, they could join the coverage of the GBF. And the target is about the actions that countries need to take at a national level to actually lead to an increase of benefit share. So these are to take legal, policy, and administrative measures for ABS, as you know, that ensure benefit sharing and also facilitate appropriate access. You have like the 2 dimensions, but also capacity building measures at all levels. And this is also in accordance with internationally agreed ABS instruments. So it's the same idea. It's just like the measures that need to be taken so we can achieve the outcomes. So for this, what is the message I want to share with you that is very important is like there is the quick guide of target 13. This provides all information that you need when you are establishing the national targets to implement the target 13 of the GBF and the goal C. So because we have in the analysis that we have done on what was submitted for COP, we did an analysis of the information. We look at the country submissions on national targets and NBSAPs for ABS. And one of the conclusions, and my colleague is going to share the document there that we prepared, is that the inclusion of all the components of the targets is not consistent. Is very often we notice that this is still a reflection of IT that is not understood all the dimensions of the target 13, and all the elements are not covered when they are translated the GBF into the national level. So this the target guide provides more information, explains this that I've been explaining, of all the components that are covered and how to address it. So also in the target 13, you can include some guiding questions for national target setting. When you don't know where to start, there is some questions that can help you to do an analysis of where the country is and what type of target you can implement and what kind of plan. So for example, I mean, if you haven't ratified a treaty, that can be something. But if you have ABS measures in place, one of the questions could be like, okay, are these measures effective? I'm really receiving benefits, or I'm really sharing benefits, depends on what is your perspective as a provider or user. And if not, what are the underlying reasons? What can I do to be more effective? So all these questions that are here can help you to identify what type of target and what type of measures and what type of financial plans you need, so we can get the increase of benefits that we all want. So that's the idea, and this information is in the target guide, so I'm not going to enter. Also, there is a list of resources, and I mean, there is a multiple resources that we have been developing over the years, and they are listed there in case that you need those resources. Like, for example, there is some e-learning modules about measures, establishing ABS measures that are very useful. They are in English, in French, and in Spanish. And if you are still at the stage of setting measures, this can be a good resource to understand what you need to do, for example, on compliance, because I have a gap here. The national report of the Nagoya Protocol can help you to guide what are the gaps and what are the things that I still haven't done and that should be part of my target or my plan to implement a target. So there is multiple resources, and I would invite you to consult there and all the links, and yeah, everything is there. So some of the a summary of what we have discussed until here. When you are defining the national target for target 13 and goal C, please be conscious of looking at all the elements and address all the elements and go beyond IT. The national target, as I say, has to be accompanied by concrete actions. So for target 13 and goal C, as part of the capacity building plans, if you need some extra guidance, there is an action plan for capacity building for the Nagoya Protocol that was just adopted in the last COPMOP that includes outcomes, outputs, and indicative list of capacity building activities like addressing enhancing endogenous research, capacity of IPLCs. Every aspect or key area for implementing the Nagoya Protocol is included in the action plan. You can look at the action plan, you can get inspired, you can identify areas that should be reinforced according to your priorities or policy decisions at the national level, and can be useful to help you build those capacity building plans and including also the target. And this has to also be accompanied by financial plans. Cannot do, I mean, everything has to be actionable and have a real plan about how you are going to do this and how you are going to achieve your goals, and the monitoring plan that we will address now. So now I'm going back to reporting and the CBD and the national targets. So for submission of the national targets and the NBSAPs, there is an online tool. Farah, can you please share the link as well? So there you can also see, it's not only for the submission, but you can look at what other targets have been submitted, for example, on ABS by other countries. And you can see as well and judge by yourself what type of thing people are submitting. There is not many countries, I mean, there is still many countries that have to submit their targets and their NBSAPs. If you haven't done so, please, I mean, it's the time, because we are going to have to start soon reporting on the targets themselves. And even if you have done it and now you look at the target in on ABS and you are not sure if you did it, I mean, that you think you could improve it and really use it for moving implementation of ABS in your country, you can revise it and you can discuss it with your country and you can revise it and update it, so it can be part of the monitoring system later. So this page, very useful as well. You can consult what other people have submitted. You can submit yourself. And this is going to be the place where you will have also to report on progress under the CBD. Just a second, let me drink some water. So as we were saying, it's all a package. So you have submitted your target, your NBSAP. In your target, you have to do also identify your indicators, and after you will have to report on it. And this is just some extracts of the template for the 7th and 8th national reports under the CBD. They were adopted now also in Rome, and here I just have like the link to the document, but like, yeah, once that the decision is adopted, you can check the final version. And this is just I have added to help understand, visualize how the different pieces fit together. So you have submitted the target, and you will have to report on the main actions that you have taken to implement it. And you have to report on the level of progress, as you can see, on track to achieve the target, not significant process, different things. You have also to provide a summary of the progress, including the main outcomes, the challenge encountered. So you are reporting on the target that you have designed. And after, you will have to provide data on the headline indicators and that you have that have been agreed, and we will look later at those on ABS for assessing the progress. So you can do various things. You can use your national data. You can use the data available from other relevant global sources, and this will be relevant also for ABS, on no data available and why. You have to respond to the questions on the binary indicators. And also, after, you will see whatever you selected when you submitted the target as component or complementary or national indicators that you selected, you will have to report on them. So this selection is already done at the submission of the national target stage. You can provide examples of effectiveness and also describe how the implementation of the target relates to the sustainable development goals. So, as I said, the target is not just like something theoretical. It's something that really you need to think that you will have to do the work at the country level, and you will have to report on it. So not just ambitionary, but like doable. So how indicators will be used? So I'm repeating a little bit myself, but like it's just to connect the dots. The parties develop the NBSAPs, you have the monitoring plan, you have selected indicators, you have a plan on how you are going to get the data to report on those indicators. They go to the national reporting, the format that was just a part of the format that is due in February, at the end of February of 2026. And all those information goes to the global review that will happen at COP17. So you are reporting on your own progress, but it's informing the global progress that is based on the indicators that, particularly the headline and the binary. So now we go back to the ABS indicators topic. As I was explaining, every country will have to report on the headline and binary indicators that have been agreed here at the last COP in Rome. Other indicators are voluntary and is more according to your circumstances. So the headline indicators, the idea is that they reflect the outcome. They are a little bit like parallel to the goal. We are looking for an increase on benefits, so we have to measure the benefits and see if there has been an increase. So there is like two indicators, one on monetary benefits and another on non-monetary benefits. The idea is that this information on monetary and non-monetary benefits received comes from different instruments, so according to the text of the goal and the target, and that can be at the end show on a single number of a percentage. So we can, like we can show to the world there has been a 10% increase on benefits shared through all the instruments, and those benefits are monetary and non-monetary. So we want to have like a headline indicator that can actually show progress. How we are going to collect the information and how we achieve this, we know that the monetary benefits and non-monetary benefits, we have been measuring it so far, so it will be new and we will have to set a lot of things in motion to get there. We will explain later how we have the methodology that is proposed, but there in this slide you can have that there is information on this on the metadata sheets. They are there. Please, Farah, share the link because this is very useful, and maybe many of the questions you have, they are there, and many of the things that we are going to present. And also, there has been an indicator and a study on ABS indicators that Amber and her team prepared, and that contains a lot of the rationale of how we got to the indicators. So this is for the headline. For the binary, this is again is reflecting more the target 13 language. It's about the process. It's about having taking the measures, legal or capacity building measures in place to ensure the benefit sharing. So for these are questions that are standardized, yes or no. That's why they are binary. You have like different answers. And they are relevant to achieve the outcomes that is actually the benefit share. This is the last version of the binary questions according to the document, the last version we have. So as you can see, does your country have legal, administrative, and policy measures for the fair and equitable sharing of benefits? No. Under development, partially, fully, not applicable. So you have like pre-standardized responses to answer to all these questions, and the type of questions include access to genetic resources, traditional knowledge, but also about DSI. So these, as I repeat, these are all mandatory, and every country will have to report on it. After we have the complementary and component indicators, which are optional. So this is when you submit a target, you select which of those are really relevant for you, or you have the information available and you want to report on it. And you can also add additional national indicators that are very relevant for your country, and you want to monitor it, even though they won't be able to be aggregated at global level. The information on these indicators, as I said, like we cannot report on it globally because some countries will decide to have the number of certificates and others maybe the number of checkpoints communicated. So you cannot aggregate the data, but still will give an indication of progress on certain areas and helps to monitor your progress at national level. The selection of these indicators are actually, the idea behind them is that they serve as proxies for benefit sharing. Many countries won't have the information available on how many benefits you have received, but for example, if you have granted certificates or permits on ABS, this is an indication that somehow there have been benefits or there will be benefits at a given point. So this serves like an idea of proxies. If we don't have the ultimate data, we still can have like intermediate steps. That's why also there is information about checkpoint communiques, because if there is a checkpoint communiques because there has been utilization of a genetic resource or users going to a checkpoint, because this is an indication that there has been utilization and at a given moment there will be some benefit shared. So now we pass through to explain a little bit more about the headline indicators. So for monetary benefits, this is the text of the version of the indicator. So monetary benefits received. So it's not about, this is from the provider perspective. So we don't measure twice. Countries that, for example, don't grant access to genetic resources, they wouldn't be contributing to this. because they cannot also know what are their users, how many benefits their users are sharing. So it's about receiving monetary benefits applicable with all, in accordance with applicable international ABS instruments. So again, not only is the CBD, the Nagoya Protocol, the International Treaty, and what other instruments may arise. So this will be measured by a specific amount of money received. This is, as is money is like, there is a single, like a single indicator that is money in US dollars, and will be aggregated across countries and across all international ABS instruments. If you have the information at a national level, there is an optional disaggregation by monetary benefits received by IPLCs. So these are things that you can include in your monitoring plan, and you can plan for it, because this is very useful information to also measure how much IPLCs are receiving of these ABS systems, and by relevant ABS instrument. And so this has implications for countries, because you will need to keep national records on monetary benefits received. And unfortunately, there is no way out. If you want to measure the benefits, you need to know the benefits that you're receiving, but also is important for the country in itself. If you want to advocate that ABS is important, you need to showcase how much benefits are receiving to the country. So it's not just measuring for measuring. It's like really, it's pivotal to move ABS forward, to understand what is happening, and if it's not happening, why. And non-monetary benefits is a little bit less straightforward. And the methodology, we work more on the methodology of how we measure this, given that the type of non-monetary benefits, you could include many different things as non-monetary benefits, and how you quantify that in a way that is a single number or percentage that you can showcase and increase on the non-monetary benefits. So what we did with Amber and their colleagues working on the study, and with the ATEC on indicators, and what has been the process, is to look at the 17 types of non-monetary benefits that was on the Nagoya Protocol Annex, given that the list is still non-exhaustive. And we classify it and try to work through them. We know that many countries do not have available information, and also that the national priorities may be different from country to country. So it's not, we are all conscious that it's not straightforward, but collectively, and through this process, we try to come up, or like with a solution of how we can measure it, because everybody also recognizes that non-monetary benefits is very important, and it should be it's very important for countries, for users, for everybody, and we should be able to capture the data on this. So we did a simplified non-monetary benefit list with 6 types of non-monetary benefits to be reported. So we like aggregated and clustered them. And the idea is to calculate the percentage of change over time to be able to enable aggregation. So for monetary benefits will be a figure, including, or could be a percentage of change, but for this is about a percentage of change. And here there is possible disaggregations that include non-monetary benefits by the type, non-monetary benefits received by IPLCs, and also about the instruments. So this is a little bit the list, how we cluster it and how we describe it according to the Nagoya Protocol Annex and categories. And all this information is in the metadata sheets if you want to look at it into detail and to understand it, and also on the study is more elaborate. But the results is that we will be measuring a certain type of non-monetary benefits at a global level and another at national level. So at global level, you can see there the number of research and development results, the number of scientific publications relevant to conservation, sustainable use, food security, and public health, and joint scientific publications, given that there is a lot of value as a non-monetary benefits on this sharing of results and for conservation and sustainable use as well. After, there is an indicator on capacity building and development, number of technology transfer events, and here there is a little bit of what we understand as technology transfer events, and number of projects contributing to sustainable development. And all of these are to be collected at national level. So, yeah, I have it here again. So these would be the types of non-monetary benefits to be reported. It might not be perfect. It might not reflect all the ABS national priorities of a country, but as we say, you can include additional national indicators that are more relevant to you because you want to measure that according to your priorities and policies. But the idea is to find solutions to enable to have measured and to be able to report on this headline indicator. So here, for the global methodology, yeah, maybe I'm going to jump and give it directly to you, Amber, so I can drink some water.
You're going to have exactly a water break. I was just going to say you've had a long go at it. Thanks, Beatrice. And so Beatrice had asked me to describe for you all how the global methodology for collecting non-monetary benefit sharing works. And the starting point, and for most of you, you already know this, the mutually agreed terms or the ABS contracts are usually private contracts. And this, of course, makes them very difficult to find and to quantify at the global level. But we have done work over the past 2 years, led by Henio Nunez Vega here at the DSMZ, to find out that some types of non-monetary benefits can be extracted from open access scientific publications. And this is a project funded by the German Federal Agency for Nature Conservation here in Germany, titled Examining Trends in Non-Monetary Benefit Sharing. And this methodology was recently published and allows us to be able to quantify some non-monetary benefit sharing types, those 3 global types that Beatrice just described for you. And these build off sort of this open scientific infrastructure in order to measure them at the global level and then to subsequently disperse them to parties via the target tracker. Go ahead, next slide, Via. Right, and I just alluded to this. So there's the source of kind of how this works. The first draft of it, if you will, is in the metadata sheets that were put together as part of the ad tech on, for the monitoring framework. And recently, I think earlier this month, in fact, a peer-reviewed publication that describes this methodology was published in the journal Science. And that link could also go into the chat if people are interested. That just basically describes the science, the technology behind this method that makes this possible on a global level. Next slide. In the paper and a database that is hopefully coming out very soon, we are able to cumulatively, across these several hundred scientific publications, provide countries with their data on research and development results shared. So that is, so the total data set right now, and as I mentioned, this is a pilot project. We have 665 scientific articles that cite an ABS permit. There are actually now 701 ABS permits identified, although unfortunately only a small fraction of those are the Nagoya Protocol standard, which is the internationally recognized certificate of compliance, the IRCC. And the reason for me increasing that number of 699 to 701 is because there are now 27 countries that are identified. We had a bilateral conversation yesterday with Ethiopia, who immediately sent us a few more publications. And so these numbers we do expect to rise over the coming months as we do some outreach. So the 3 types of data that one can pull from a scientific publication is what's displayed here on the bottom left, the upper right, and the bottom right. And these data are all extracted from scientific publications, but they each represent a sort of different data source inside the publication. So on the bottom left, this is the total number of research and development results shared, where the proxy is the scientific publication itself as the research and development result shared. Then you can also take through a tool called OpenAlex that basically categorizes certain kinds of journals and the abstract of a text into certain fields. You can also ask the question, is this publication relevant to a priority research area? And so you can basically assign certain kinds of publications to say, this serves public health, this serves conservation, this serves sustainable use, this serves food security, or other. Or none of the four, and then that goes into the bucket other. And so then you can have additional information that the research that came directly from an ABS permit being granted served one of these 4 priority research areas. And then in the bottom right, the number of joint scientific publications with authors from the provider country, that is that country that granted access to the genetic resource. There's a scientist in that country that was on the publication. Here we're using the metadata in the author list where the author said, I work in this institute. And then you can assign that to a geographical location. And so you can do that for all of the authors. And if there was one from Germany and there was one from Colombia and the genetic resource came from Colombia, then you would say, yes, for this publication, there was an author from the country of origin that worked on the scientific publication. And therefore you can measure the number of joint scientific publications as a proxy for international collaboration. When we build up the website, then for every single country that has articles or publications inside our database, then you can go into the database and you can type in Kenya, and then you can see all of the results, the permits, and then the graph, the data broken down for each of these figures. And you can also get an Excel download list that shows you everything that we found and all of the related metadata. So in some ways, what Bia has said at past workshops, for example, last year in Bonn at the Global ABS workshop, we like to think that we are doing some of the ABS work for you in terms of the downstream monitoring, because we're helping to see some of the end results that might not readily or easily be connected back to the original ABS permit. Next slide. So this is a kind request to ask for the things that we need from you in order for those graphs on the previous slide to work. One thing that would make everybody's life much more easy is if the IRCCs, which is a requirement of the Nagoya Protocol, were issued quickly and issued in general, because IRCCs, and Matt Diaz can tell you a lot more about this, are really cool in a technological sense because they're a DOI, they're a digital object identifier. It's a permanent address that never disappears. And unlike a national permit number, or unlike saying, I think, a specific agency that might have granted a permit, an IRCC is a unique code that is undeniably and unequivocally associated with the outcome of an ABS event, namely a national ABS contract. So that's absolutely the gold standard, and that's the one thing that we would encourage all parties to really move forward on as they complete and work on their ABS implementation. The second thing that we are asking for you is that if your country was not lit up on that map before, then please reach out to us. Here's Henoar's email in the slide, and maybe we could even put it into you're perfect, thank you. Please reach out to him and say, my country was dark, I have ABS permits, and I would like to be able to put them, or have you look for them for me in the scientific literature and find the non-monetary benefit sharing that I don't yet know about. We will be the custodian of the non-monetary ABS indicator as long as we have project funding. For now, that's only through 2025, and we're hopeful for 2026, but we do plan to make a long-term investment in this infrastructure. Once we have your national ABS permits, then what you get back from the project and from the website that should go live soon is a page that is sort of your country page to find those non-monetary benefits. And like I said, also the ability to be able to download those. Additionally, for the global reporting period, so at the end of this year, in advance of the February 2026 reporting deadline, our data will be made available to the UNEP target tracker They will then be pre-populated into your national reports. And then you can take them and say, yes, those are all right. You can delete the ones and say, no, these are wrong. And then you can add additional kinds of non-monetary benefits to those 3 types of benefits or to the other types of non-monetary benefits that you collected nationally. But the important thing for you is to hear the phrase pre-populated, meaning the UNEP target tracker system, the IT system magic in the background takes our data and puts it into your national report. Another thing that we will need in the near term and over time is that your mutually agreed terms that you agree on with users, that they also remind users when it comes to a scientific publication, please list your IRCCs or your ABS permit numbers in the scientific publication. So you can have a completely legal ABS permit, but if the scientist doesn't write that number into the publication or write the institute that issued the permit, it's very, very difficult to know that it's an ABS case and to count it accordingly. And I mentioned a lot that the database is coming soon. I think with that, Beatrice, was the next slide. I think that might have been it, right? Right. And here's the study that Beatrice has referred to several times. This is the logic. This is the big picture of ABS indicators writ large. And if you have time, explore it. And there is a relatively short executive summary at the front. Back to you, Beatrice.
Thank you, Amber, for giving me that little pause. No, but it helps to understand, to see how your monitoring plans, how you need to plan when you are doing the target, and how you are going to structure your implementation of the GBF. Remember that you will need to collect information from monetary benefits. You will need to collect the information of non-monetary benefits that is nationally collected, as we classified, and that after Amber and her team will be able to provide you some data for other type of non-monetary benefits that you can consider or not, but like you will also need to make sure that this data will be available by taking these national actions. So in your monitoring plan, you have to, it's like, okay, let's going to include a mandatory clause on every mutually agreed terms to make this ABS citation when they are doing publications. These things you have to incorporate it from the beginning, so we allows the monitoring of the benefit sharing later. So yeah, very useful to know all this information when you are doing your national target, your concrete actions, your monitoring plan on ABS. So these are some of the recommendations that you can include in your monitoring plans and in your priority setting at national level to be able to collect information on benefits. That as we say, we are aware that many countries don't have that information available right now. So for monetary benefits, for example, it can be useful to have a national fund that is centralized. So it's very easy to measure if all the monetary benefits go to the same fund, you know how to report on it. I know this is not as also straightforward. Sometimes this depends on national laws and how your institutions are organized, but it's an idea that you may want to consider to help monitoring the monetary benefits. Include standard language in mutually agreed terms that allow to report on benefits received. We were aware from all the discussions that sometimes reporting on monetary benefits can be tricky because confidentiality clauses on commercial agreements and commercial contracts. However, this information is confidential for a specific agreement. You are not reporting on how much benefits they have agreed for an access, but you can include that the possibility to aggregate information at the global level. So if you are reporting on the benefits shared through 20, 100, 5 agreements, essentially you cannot link back so easily to the agreement itself. So this is something that you can already think about incorporating in the mutually agreed terms, and in our discussions with users, it seems like they don't have any problem about including that information as part of an aggregated data set, not like individual for the agreement. Other possibility, when the cases where you have the monetary benefits or the benefits are received in a non-centralized system, like by communities or private owners, I mean, depends of your national system, you can think about a way to have a database or a system for reporting on the benefit sharing that they are receiving and report to the country. So it's a way of having, to monitor what is happening when you have a more decentralized system. So you could also require users to report to this single centralized national authority for benefits that are shared through multiple beneficiaries. There is solutions that can be found at the national level to collect the information. And again, why is worthy to put an effort on this? Not only because we have to report at global level and we want to showcase that ABS works and is worthy and is good to invest and is bringing conservation and sustainable use, but also at the national level. You need to, if you can showcase that this is bringing this amount of monetary and non-monetary benefits to the communities, has helped finance this and that, is very important to continue investing and making ABS more efficient and better and enhanced. So there is a political will and a motion to continue enhancing the benefits that are shared and received. So depend of your national circumstances, the solutions might be different. Depends if you have a more centralized system with a single authority or if you have it a more decentralized. Even if you have it more decentralized system, it's important that the national focal point and the CNA know what is happening in their country. So every kind of platform or way of sharing those information benefits received is very important to put it in place independently of the monitoring framework. So summary of what we have been talking about is there is mandatory reporting on headlines and binary indicator. You will all have to report on this. So plan for it. The optional reporting for complementary and component indicators as pre-selected. Think what are most useful for your country. A monitoring plan that includes the capacity and financial needs to be able to report on the mandatory, like the headlines. So think how could you collect information on monetary and non-monetary benefits and include it in the capacity needs, include it in the financial plans, assess the information available, and think about the tools that can help to facilitate the collection and compilation and reporting of information. So mainstreaming ABS on NBSAPs and the GBF is not something abstract, it's something very specific about increasing the benefits that your country is receiving. What do I need to do? And make plans for it. Lastly, I'm just going to recall some of the relevant decisions of the COPMOP on this. There was a decision on enhancing the Nagoya Protocol as part of the GBF, where what I've been saying, it has been emphasized, invites parties to address all elements of Target 13 and Goal C. So go and look at the guide, put in place mechanisms and tools to collect information on benefits, include the capacity and financial needs for collecting the information, and also inviting parties to include the national authorities relevant for ABS in all the work that is happening on NBSAPs and monitoring under the CBD. We cannot operate so much in silos. So it depends from where you come from. If you are an ABS, you are working on ABS, please make sure that you contact your CBD counterpart and you are included in the NBSAPs discussion, because this is key for you to advance implementation of ABS. And invites organizations and governments and parties to support the development of tools for reporting of benefits. We will have to work in the coming bienniums on tools to collect the information, and so think about it, make them useful, not only for monitoring purposes, but for your own system, to make it more clear, to help clarify flows of information and permits. And yeah, it's think globally how to implement these tools that really can help you. And also is calling for a support of the continuation of the global methodology for non-monetary benefits that Amber presented. As she said, there is like limited funding and they are working. I mean, if you want to know more about this tool, after Amber, please tell them also about the workshop that you are organizing. You can engage with them bilaterally and you can see how useful can it be to monitor also what is happening in your country and how can help your enhancing your ABS system. So it's very useful, and yeah, we hope that it continues and continues providing support because they are the custodians of this indicator. And lastly, just a note to remind everybody that the national report for the Nagoya Protocol is also due at the end of February 2026. There is guidelines and formats available on the ABS Clearinghouse, and you have the offline formats. Can be very useful to guide also the national target. You can use it as a checklist of all the things that you still need to do to implement the Nagoya Protocol. And we will be providing materials to help with the submission on the clearinghouse, and we will reach out to you later on about this. But this is a reminder that is coming, and like you should start preparing for it. And with this, I'm afraid that has been a rather long presentation, but we wanted to cover many things. The presentation is finalized, and maybe we can have like, I haven't been able to look at the questions on the chat, but like maybe we can answer some of the questions. Farah, can you help me there, please?
Of course. So we received 4 questions. I'm going to read them out 2 by 2, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So the first question is, does monetary benefit include the fund paid for permits and the money the users spend in country for food, accommodation, etc.? And the second question is, are there guidelines on how non-monetary benefits can be quantified?
Okay, so the first question, basically that depends of the benefits that you have agreed, rather on the permit, on the ABS agreement, that's what defines. Each country, for some countries, the fee of processing a permit is considered benefit sharing, or is just like administrative fee. So this is my understanding, Amber, no? Like, and this is whatever has been agreed as part of the permit or the mutually agreed terms, that this benefit is considered a benefit shared or received. These would be the things that you would have to quantify. And Amber, do you want to?
Yeah, I think generally if a researcher goes into a country and that research costs money, then those costs that researcher money, then those are considered sort of non-monetary benefits if they're in the sort of framework of the ABS agreement. But no, generally monetary benefits are understood to be money that goes to a provider, be that a country or be that an IPLC, in the form of money. Not money that you spend on something else in country, then at the most that would be non-monetary benefit sharing. There was a question from Gustavo Pinilla that I would also like to answer that's coming up, I think.
Sure, you can go ahead. I can read out the question so everyone can hear it. If you're talking about this question, right? If parties put in place measures to exclude certain research activities from requiring ABS permits, wouldn't that hurt them with the indicators? For example, biodiversity-related articles published wouldn't have an ABS permit and thus fly under the radar.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really good question, Gustavo, and I think it's something that we should continue to discuss on. So you're right. So like if we took Colombia and we said, okay, Colombia says there's no ABS permit required for any type of research under biodiversity or taxonomy, for example, Spain does that, or conservation writ large, then it would have the effect that with the non-monetary benefit sharing methodology, then you wouldn't count those at all because those activities would never have an ABS permit. The good news is that, and this is the beauty of the national reporting system, a country can report those on their own and say, look at all of this, biodiversity research that's coming out of Colombia or based on Colombian genetic resources, and count that in your national report. And I think we would be very open here at the DSMZ, subject to the availability of funds, to be able to work with individual countries and sort of thinking about how we could capture that we've been working using large language, I should say Henuar, on using large language models to be able to identify if something is an ABS-like case. That is to say, it is a publication that uses genetic resources, and we can guess what the country of origin of the genetic resources are. And if we had instructions from a country to say, please capture that and count that for me, then those are the kinds of add-ons that we could definitely look into in the future. So I would love to continue the conversation with you or with other countries that would be interested in gathering that data for yourselves. So you're right. Right now we'll miss it, but in the future, there's no reason to give up that data.
Thank you, Amber. We have 2 more questions. So to what extent and how can businesses support the implementation of national targets? And the last question we got is there funding for writing the report and hire consultants?
Yeah, maybe to answer the question, I mean, businesses, as part of ABS, there is a very easy way of supporting, apply for ABS and share your benefits. But besides that, part of the NBSAPs process and national target setting, the idea of the GBF is that it becomes a whole of society and whole of government approach. So work with the stakeholders. I mean, we cannot talk about ABS without working with business and researchers and stakeholders to help also to make ABS happen. So yeah, sorry, I could have mentioned that as well. Like, as part of the process, it's not only you identifying what I can do better at the national level to increase the benefit sharing. You should engage your IPLCs, your stakeholders, the businesses, to see and understand how the ABS systems can be improved or put in place, that they are conducive to increase of benefits and not actually being preventing research or preventing the benefit sharing. We want the benefits to be shared. This is the ultimate goal. So whatever you are deciding as a policy approach at national level should try to unlock this benefit sharing, and to do that you need to understand research and business, and you have to consult. So as business or other stakeholders, please engage at national level to help inform possible processes of national target setting and advance. And I think Amber wants to jump here. Amber?
Yeah, you had, I mean, this is not specifically on the whole of government bit, but I forgot, you reminded me to mention the sort of follow-up workshop that we will be hosting on the 6th of May in the afternoon here in Europe. So the morning for the Americas or the evening for Asia. I can't seem to use the chat because it seems to be blocked because the meeting is over. But anyhow, just reach out to me or to Henyar Nunez, the email that's higher up in the chat, or to the Secretariat, and they can connect you with us. That's really focused on this methodology that I mentioned earlier. So that wouldn't be a more general webinar, that would be a highly focused workshop on that global methodology, using scientific publications. So please do follow up with us if you want to take a deeper dive into that particular aspect of what Beatrice presented today.
We can try to share also with the participants the invitation if nobody opposes. And for the last questions about the national report and the funding, the UNEP is preparing with Jeff a project to provide funding, as we normally do. And countries have been invited and reminded several times about submitting the letters of endorsement to be part of the project. So if you are part of a country that haven't submitted the letter of endorsement yet, please contact us. We can put you in contact with UNEP, because they are putting together a project, and whoever doesn't submit the letter of endorsement at a given moment won't be able to access those funds to help support the national report. So if you think you are in that case, we will put you in contact with the UNEP counterpart on this for the funding. Anything else or any remaining questions? I know that has been a lot of information to process, but everything is there. You have the guide, you have the metadata sheets, you have studies, there is the latest decisions. So if you also have a follow-up question on this, you can contact us. We are always ready to help, but the information is there. Sometimes I know it's not so easy to navigate when you have too much, but everything is there that you need to help integrate ABS and really make an opportunity of it, because this is the implementation tool that we have to move forward. And how to get financial support, you will need to have it there also in the NBSAPs and the national target. So be strategic and please use it as a transformative opportunity to really lead to an increase of benefit sharing. That is what we all want at the end. So I think with this, thank you for your patience. And and please give it a push and submit. If you don't like your national target, revise it and submit it again. So thank you, and see you in the next webinar. We will announce it whenever we have it. We have it planned. We will send another reminder. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.